Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching India Tonight with me, Sumita. Kareer. I'm back with the show that deep dives into the biggest stories that are shaping our markets, economies, and geopolitics. Over the next 1 hour, we'll be addressing just some of these stories. So let's begin with some news coming in from the United States. That's one of our top stories. Well, the Trump administration is doubling down on its hardline immigration stance. Fresh tensions are erupting on another front. President Donald Trump has sparked fresh controversy by banning visas for new international students who are enrolling at Harvard University. The move, remember, comes after Harvard reportedly refused to provide federal officials with certain student records. In response, the White House is also threatening to revoke Harvard's tax-exempt status and freeze over $2.2 billion in federal funding. Harvard, remember, has condemned the action as retaliatory and it's pledged to defend its global student body. This sharp escalation raises serious questions about academic freedom and the United States higher education global standing. To discuss this story and the implications of this new development that's come as far as Donald Trump's clampdown on Harvard is concerned, I'm now joined by Gurcharan, author and commentator, also the former CEO of P&G India. Thank you very much, Mr. Das, for joining us here on ET Now. Now, as somebody who's attended Harvard B School, how do you expect Harvard to push back against this diktat? They already did sue the US administration against freezing of funds and related actions. But what more do you expect from the students' body or the administration to do with respect to the latest action that's coming from the Donald Trump administration?
Well, you know, I am very proud of the stand that Harvard has taken. And by the way, let me correct you. I went to Harvard as an undergraduate, where I studied philosophy. But later, yes, I did spend 2 summers at the B School, at the business school, for the advanced management program. But let me also say that this is a very sad moment and in America's history, actually, not just Harvard. It looks like America is turning on itself. It's shooting itself in the foot. America, as you know, Harvard is one of America's top institutions, which has had a record of excellence, of Nobel Prize winners over decades, over the centuries. And why has Mr. Trump picked on Harvard? Well, uh, originally it was the whole situation, which is true for all, which is, this anti-Semitism. But there was no proof of any anti-Semitism, and it really amounted to bullying. But Harvard actually stood up. They didn't cave in. The administration wanted personal records of students, international students. 1/3 of Harvard students are international. And it is these students who have gone up later and contributed in many, many ways to America. So the point is that they stood up, they went to court, the court gave them an injunction, but he tried to find other ways to punish Harvard. And imagine punishing by denying funds for research with projects which were underway, projects for cancer research, for other diseases. And so, I mean, America was a land built by immigrants. When I went there, it was a free and open society. It was really, it was really the dream of where a person didn't matter what your origins were. What mattered was your destination. And so it was a country created by immigrants. In a competitive world, America's lead in technology is the result, or is this unique advantage, is the result of that open society, of being open to immigrants And so I think this is a self goal,
Right.
and frankly, um, the
This.
culture, it's a culture war. Uh, it's going back centuries to a time when might was right. That's what he's asserting now. It's like a tribal society that America's becoming.
Absolutely.
And a sort of, the worst form of 19th century nationalism. That's what he's showing,
Right.
that America is become. And I mean, I was in America two
Right.
weeks ago,
Right.
and frankly, I was scared. I had proper visas,
Right.
everything, all the papers. In fact, I did not want even my cell phone. I had given it to somebody else to take because I was scared. And when I was able to cross the
Right.
immigration, the person
Right.
was actually quite nice at the immigration desk,
Right.
not the weaponization of immigration that has
Right.
happened to others. uh, I sighed with relief.
Absolutely.
And by weaponizing
Absolutely.
immigration, a friend of mine from The Economist, an English person, a very brilliant man, he was held for
Right, sir.
questioning for hours and hours at the immigration. And now
Right.
imagine the Secretary of State, Mr. Rubio, has sent an email to
Right, sir.
all consular offices, all embassies around the world to
Right,
scrutinize
sir.
every applicant who's
Right, sir.
applying for Harvard. Imagine that. What?
Absolutely, and sir, these some of these developments are very, very worrying, given the stance that America has taken in the past, and these current policies are a far cry from some of those policies. And weaponizing immigration, well, that's a well point made. But let me come back to the issue of funding. How much of the absence of this money is going to impact Harvard? And secondly, what's the bearing do you think this is going to have on higher education across the country?
Well, funding, fortunately, Harvard is a rich institution. It's had alumni over the years who've given back to Harvard. And so, um, overall, yes, Harvard can survive, but what will get hurt are these very specific funds that are projects that the US government is funding, and the professors who are working on those projects, particularly those that are there in medicine and in diseases, on various diseases, especially cancer. Those will get hurt, I think.
Right. So some bit of research is going to take, some sort of an impact. But sir, when you mentioned that Harvard is standing tall and standing strong with respect to these diktats that are coming in from the Trump administration, we know that other universities, like Columbia, for example, it acceded to Trump's administration's demands. And when it alleged that there was anti-Semitism on the campus, then there was, Princeton as well. Several of these universities, again, Cornell as well, Northwestern University, some of these universities have bowed down to the Trump administration, but Harvard still stating that it's going to fight hard against some of these diktats and it will stand up for its international students. But let me ask you now about the legal aspect, if you can talk about that. Do you think this is going to stand the legal test?
Well, the legal point is that he's using a very clever device, which is the question of security. Now, that will depend on, that is, that these people who come to Harvard are a security threat. Now, how do you prove that? I mean, this is where a judge will have to, since it will go to court, like the other cases have gone to court, that Harvard, the case to show what they'll present, Harvard will have to present credentials, I suppose, at the court of the students, that they are not a threat to the security of America. And I personally think it will depend on the justice, on the judge who will hear the case. And what is sad is that you have a man who's a convicted felon running the country. And the half the country, I mean, the guy's a madman. Half the country has voted for this guy. And it's just so hard to believe. And I'm sure some judges are also, they are in his, they sympathize with him. So it's very hard to say what will happen. But my own sense is that it will not stand up. If they had not selected one university, but all universities, then maybe that. But normally you have you have a ruling, a policy that covers every equal type of individual or institution. But here you're picking on Harvard and its foreign students when there's no case so far of a
Right.
security threat from any foreign student.
Absolutely.
So it looks like
Absolutely.
it may not stand in court scrutiny. Let's hope not.
Right. Absolutely. Right, sir. But let me come back to, some of the comments that were made earlier with Harvard administration when this case first broke out. The spokesperson from Harvard University said that, in fact, a spokesperson from the Trump administration rather said that Harvard is coordinating with the Chinese Communist Party. It's fostering violence, anti-Semitism. Of course, all of those claims have not been proven as yet. But the big question now is, what do Americans really think of this? You were stating that you were in America just a few days back. Especially those people who are not part of his MAGA base.
Yeah, I mean they're in shock. They just don't know what's happened to their country. It has suddenly gone back to a tribal society, the civilized norms. I mean, just think, I mean, anti-Semitism. You know, Harvard, a disproportionate amount of Harvard's faculty and student body is Jewish. It used to be much more Jewish before, but now with competition from around the world, especially countries like India and China and so on, there are a lot of other people. But still, the very important part of Harvard still is Jewish. And you're talking about anti-Semitism at Harvard. It doesn't stand common sense. It doesn't, it doesn't stand to reason. So I just think that it's a sad moment for the world. The only good thing I can find in Mr. Trump right now is that trade agreement that we are going through. And frankly, our India, if it wants to become a successful economy, has to bring down its tariffs. It has to join up with the global supply chains. And for that, we should have many more companies like Apple, which is producing iPhones. We need the labor intensive manufacturing happening, and lowering of tariffs is a very important part of it. We couldn't do it ourselves. He's forcing us to do it, and I think that's probably a good thing. But apart from that, he's an unmitigated disaster for the world.
Absolutely, and that is also reflecting in the way that he's conducting his trade deals, especially with countries like China. He was trying to arm twist China, but now it is Donald Trump himself who seems desperate with the kind of commentary that he's been posting on his Truth Social platform, Mr. Das. But when we talk about Harvard and of course the international students who are represented there, it's the Chinese students who form the largest part. Over 2,000. India comes at a close second. Then there are students from Canada, Germany, South Korea, UK, and Australia as well. Do you anticipate, even though this, do you anticipate this to have any bearing on United States ties with some of these countries?
Certainly. Look, let me just correct myself in one respect, that Chinese students have in the recent years, and this is not at Harvard, but I think at other universities, they have actually been the Chinese students, at least from what I've heard, that their behavior has been such that they may have actually misused their role as students to take technology from America. And so there may be a case in certainly in individuals. Then you see, in such a case, you don't, you can take a particular institution, particular student, and you can then you can make a case for such an action. So the Chinese, I'm afraid, have muddied the water a bit. And certainly, the relations now between the United States and China. I mean, they couldn't be worse. So, and in fact, that partly is for our economy. It's a positive because we now have the opportunity to become that China plus one manufacturing base for some multinational companies. However, I just think overall it is not it is, while certainly there are large number of Indian Chinese students naturally because of our population also, but just to go overboard in this sort of way and hurt everybody who's applying, all foreign students, is and they're doing it in ways
Right, sir.
that they're going to hurt themselves ultimately. It's a
Right, sir.
self-goal.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because the world definitely, even though we may say that, isolationism is defining United States global policy, but the world is far more connected and dependent than ever. It remains to be seen whether Donald Trump will prevail and Harvard will ultimately end up losing a third of its students or not, or will that be reversed? That remains to be seen. But thank you very much, Mr. Das, for joining us here on ET Now and sharing your thoughts and perspectives on this story.
Thank you.